Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor. Welcome back to Long Island, New York, Zone 7A. So today is a rainy, cloudy day outside. So we're going to stay inside in my green room and we're going to talk all about orchids, and we are going to repot this beauty. We are going to repot and talk all about repotting a phalaenopsis orchid, you guys. So for those of you who are still not subscribed to my channel, do not wait any longer, you guys. You could still subscribe. It's very, very easy. Go below this video and click the subscribe button so you will never ever miss any of my newly released gardening videos. If you like this video today, click thumbs up. Leave your comments below. I love reading your comments. I love hearing all about your experiences, your gardening tips, so don't be shy. Write your comments. So again, today we're going to repot a phalaenopsis orchid. So come with me. Let's get started. So when you guys purchase an orchid, most of the time you will go to our local nursery center, garden center, or even our local supermarkets now sell orchid plants. Most of the time, the ones you see in your grocery store and or your local garden center are phalaenopsis orchids. So when you purchase an orchid, most of the time it is filled with something called a peat moss. So the grass looking debris inside, it's not soil, it is not bark. This beige colored substance is called peat moss. And typically, orchids are not meant to grow inside peat moss. So the substance that you see inside your original orchid pot is meant to be there only temporarily, as orchids grow on trees in nature, on bark. So there is typically absolutely no reason to repot your orchid annually. In fact, ideally, you should repot your orchid about once every 2 years. Again, unless you notice problems with either the orchid's roots developments or with the bark. If you see the bark starting to disintegrate or rot, then of course, you need to repot your orchid immediately. So what are the primary top reasons to repot your orchid? If you start to see that your peat moss, which is what I currently have inside this pot, and or your bark are starting to disappear, you could see the pocket, empty pocket formed over here, or break down too much, meaning they're starting to look and or feel like soil, you want to repot your orchid immediately. Why you do not want your peat moss or bark to feel like soil? Soil holds moisture and it brings moisture towards orchids' roots, their developments. And orchid roots, which are these things over here, they are not capable of releasing or evaporating water, which is not good for an orchid plant. Also, always look for fungus growing inside your pot. The second you see any fungus forming or growing, it's time to repot your orchid plants. So now that you're ready to repot your orchid, first thing you do is you get rid of, pull out either the bamboo stick or the stake that initially came with your orchid plant. Very easy, you take it out. Step number 2, we need to take this beauty out of its initial old plant pot. How do you do this? Remember, be very, very gentle. You do not want to damage any of the leaves, break the leaves, or damage the roots development. That would be a no-no. So you gently hold your orchid plant in place and you try to pull or to tug gently on the pot, like so, releasing the plant with the roots out of the old container. So here you go, done. Next, the goal is to get rid of all or most of the old growing medium. So whether you have peat moss and or bark. So you want to be able to see the roots. Why? Because you want to be able to trim off any development that is either dead, dry, or rotten. And also, by removing the old growing medium will allow you to see, to check for any possible fungal or moss disease. So again, be very, very delicate, very, very gentle. Try to remove, if not all, then most of the medium, your peat moss. The more medium you remove, the more roots you could see. Here you see, guys, some of the dead roots are already coming off with the old peat moss. Don't worry, what's dead is not coming back, you guys. So focus on not damaging the healthy, the green development. So keep going, guys. Most of it has to come out. Look at this, more dead roots, you guys. Here, see, as I get deeper and deeper into the root system, I am exposing more of the dead development. So you see the yellow, the beige, this will all have to be cut back. So keep going, guys. Be a little patient here. Don't rush. No reason to rush over here. So when you're looking at your orchid plant, always look at your plant's leaves. Make sure that they are deep green, healthy looking color. So if you see any leaves that are yellow and or brown in color, you will need to cut those leaves off. And always remember that the bottom leaves of your orchid plant are always the oldest leaves. So now that I pulled my orchids out of the old planting container, removed all of the old peat moss, and now I'm able to see all of the roots, all of the development, there are two things you guys need to look at. Number one is the color of your orchid's leaves and how firm do your leaves feel. So as you can see here, my orchid is nice and dark green color. There is no yellow or brown leaves. The leaves are shiny, healthy looking, and they're firm to the touch. Next thing, you inspect the roots. You look for any sign of mold. You look closely, diligently. I do not see any mold on this orchid, which is a good thing. But if you do discover mold, what should you do? You should take your orchid like so, straight to your sink, rinse out the roots diligently. You want to wash away any of the mold. Then what you do next is you get hydrogen peroxide. Yes, guys, hydrogen peroxide, 3% concentration, acts as an antifungal agent, and you diligently soak. You soak your orchid's roots development with this 3% hydrogen peroxide antifungal chemical before repotting your orchid in the new potting medium. So believe it or not, guys, but orchids' roots are photosynthetic, you guys. Yes, they actually absorb light. So peat moss or stagnum moss as a potting mix might be good for a baby or a younger orchid. But if your orchid is larger or a mature orchid, you should buy special potting mix for orchids in order for your orchid to grow successfully. So both peat moss and sphagnum moss absorb way too much water, guys. And if you're not careful and you accidentally overwater, if your orchid is planted in either peat moss or sphagnum moss, it could cause their velamen or their roots to start rotting. So what is another common mistake that gardeners make when either growing or repotting their orchid plants is choosing the right pot or the right container to grow your orchid in. So here I have different pots. Some just have drainage hole on the bottom. This one has a drainage hole on the bottom and air holes on the side. And this one has neither, nor a drainage hole, nor holes on the side. So when you come to your local garden center and you see a large abundant selection of pots, choosing the right pot is absolutely crucial. So one of the mistakes that gardeners make is choosing a pot that only has drainage holes on the bottom, but no air holes on the side. That is a huge mistake. So between these three pots, this pot, yes guys, the pot with drainage hole and air holes all around the pot is the right pot to grow your phalaenopsis orchid in. So as you are removing your orchid from your original planting container, you probably can right away see the majority of the velamen, orchid's root system, grows inside your growing medium, whether it's moss and or bark. But there always are either one or a few roots which you will see grow outside of the existing growing medium. These are called aerial roots. Aerial means that they grow outside in the air, you guys. And what is the primary job of aerial roots? Well, their job is to draw air into orchid's root system, into the velamen. So if initially you saw these roots outside of your growing medium, when you are repotting, make sure that you still keep aerial roots outside, out of your growing medium. Keep them aerial, you guys, meaning growing in the air. Do not bury aerial roots. So in nature, orchids grow on trees, guys. Yes, you will never find orchids growing on the ground or in pots, of course. So why do they need aerial roots? Because aerial roots grab the moisture from the air and pull the moisture into the orchid plant. Again, you guys, the roots of your orchid plant are called the velamen. So whether it's the root system that is below our bark and or below our orchid potting mix, or the aerial velamen, so the velamen that grows above the level of our potting mix, that helps absorb and bring that moisture from the air. Our velamen have to be this healthy green and or transparent color. We do not want to see any velamen that are dry and dead like this, or brown dead like this, or even yellow. So anything that is not this green transparent color like you see over here, we will have to use either sharp kitchen scissors and or sharp gardening shears to cut off any dying, dead, or damaged velamen. when trimming or cutting the development of your orchid plant, make sure that whatever cutting device you're using, it is nice and sharp. You do not want to have dull scissors or dull gardening pruners that will pull and potentially damage development even more. We do not want to do that. Make sure they're nice and sharp. Now, you come to your plant and you look for anything that is rotten, cut it off. Anything that is yellow, we cut it off. Easy, cut it off. And you work through all of your velamin. You cut off anything that looks suspicious, anything that looks diseased. You go all the way down and you cut it like so, garbage. And you keep going till your whole root system is nice and clean. Anything yellow, guys, anything, even if it's a large chunk, anything that looks like this is not coming back, you guys. Like I just said, what's dead, it's not going to come back for you. And in fact, it will stunt the growth of your orchid plant. So here you go, guys. I am all done pruning and cutting the dead or ill or diseased or dying development off of my phalaenopsis orchid plant. You could see the root system looks much better over here. And now you could see all of the dead and or dying development that I was able to cut off today. So now my orchid is ready to be repotted in my new pot with my new bark growing medium. Growing or repotting your orchid, make sure that you choose a growing medium, which was specifically formulated for growing orchids, guys. So here you could see I have my orchid potting mix. Again, you can go to your local garden center or nursery and pick any brand up. But most of the time, when you choose something that is meant for orchids, most of the time, the growing medium will be a porous, coarse bark of some sort. We are repotting. What you want to do is you want to take your new pot, again, with air holes and a drainage hole on the bottom. You take a little bit of your bark and or orchid potting mix. You place it on the bottom of the pot like so. Then you take your newly, freshly cut orchid and you place it on top of your bark mix. Try to tap down the bark. Remember, it's very coarse and porous. Tap, tap, tap. What you want to do is then you want to add more of your bark on top. And remember, whatever roots were aerial, we need to keep them aerial. Here you could see, guys, my orchid is in its new growing pot. You could see that the aerial roots are still aerial roots. They are exposed to the air. Now my orchid will be growing in its new growing medium, the bark. And also, guys, remember that when you're watering your orchid, try to pour down into the bark and the root and not collect or keep any water in orchid's crown, as it will cause a rot. So we do not want to do that either. And if you're choosing a fertilizer, again, choose a fertilizer which is meant for orchids. You should always fertilize the leaves, the velamen, and the growing medium. Try not to spray growing orchid flowers if your flower is in bloom. So here you go, guys. I already watered my orchid and I sprayed my orchid with this instant feed mist orchid fertilizer. And now I'm going to place my orchid in a nice sunny location. So this is it, you guys. My phalaenopsis orchid is now replanted. Yes, guys, it's in a brand new, correct, appropriate growing pot with the correct growing medium for my orchid. So if you guys like this video, click thumbs up. Leave your comments below. Let me know when and how you replant your orchids. And if you haven't yet done so, subscribe to my channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor. Stay healthy, happy, and be well. And I will see you guys again here in Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor in my next upcoming videos. Bye!